Why don't one of you give me the started? Let me know when to go ahead and start, okay?
Hi, Patty. We have let everyone in, and so you can get started at any time.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patty Brigham, President of the League of Women Voters of Florida, and very happy to welcome you back to our regular Friday Lunch and Learn. We're really excited about today's guest speaker. Very timely issues we're facing with voting and registering to vote in the pandemic, and I'm really pleased to introduce the Supervisor of Elections of Hillsborough County and the President-elect of the Supervisors Association, Supervisors of Elections Association of Florida, Craig Latimer. Thank you so much for joining us, Craig. Welcome. I know you're going to talk with us a bit about online voter registration and vote by mail, and our members have many questions. So welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to everybody, and I really appreciate this opportunity. You know, online voter registration is one of the easiest ways to vote, that is for sure, or the easiest way to register. You can go to your computer and do it. It doesn't take long. It's effortless. Now, if you do online voter registration, you're going to have to supply a driver's license number or Florida ID card number and the last four of your social so that a match can be made on your information. The online voter registration system is quite frankly thanks to our Florida State Association of Supervisors, because we pushed that for several years, finally got it passed. It's just a great tool. The one beauty of that for the supervisors too is that we don't have to have any paper. Everything is done online through portals with the state, so there's not a chance of us making data entry errors or things getting lost in the mail, stuff like that. So that's just one of the huge benefits to it right there.
That's great. We are sending voters to our voting platform that the League provides, vote411.org, where Floridians can register to vote online. Could you talk a little bit about the vote by mail process and what you're expecting this year? I'm sure you're expecting a huge increase in the mail-in ballots.
Yeah, we're tracking that right now, I can assure you that. Just to give you an example, in Hillsborough County in 2018, we sent out 263,000 ballots for the general election. I wouldn't be surprised if that number doubles in Hillsborough County, and I think my counterparts around the state are expecting similar numbers. We're tracking it right now. Interestingly enough, we're averaging about 1,500 a week of requests for vote by mail, and the majority of those again are coming in through our website. That's the one thing that's different. You got to go to your specific supervisor of election for your county's website in order to order a vote by mail ballot. We're also working with a lot of partners and doing some really unique stuff right now too. You know, the schools are doing grab and go lunches, and we're working with a bunch of the schools, and they're throwing flyers in the grab and go lunches to go home to the parents and give them the opportunity and the information about how to get a vote by mail ballot. We're also working with a bunch of restaurants. They're putting it in their to-go bags. So we're trying to get innovative with some of the things we're doing. I know myself and many other supervisors are also going to be mailing out to registered voters who are not currently on the list to get vote by mail ballots, either to the household or to the individual voters, giving them an opportunity to get a vote by mail or order a vote by mail ballot, either online or with paper.
Okay, thank you. We're getting a number of questions from our members. So I'm going to start asking some of these questions on behalf of them. This is from Terry. Why is the government trying to defund the post office? That does not make sense to me. Well, it certainly doesn't make sense to any of us. Craig, do you have any answers to that question?
You know, I really don't. That's a federal issue right now. I mean, it obviously would impact everybody. We've had a great relationship with the post office locally here, and I know the Secretary of State's office and Division of Election maintain close alliance with them. They actually approve all of our vote by mail mailings and what's on the envelope, how the envelope's laid out, where the intelligent barcode is. So they're a very important partner to us. But the thing about it, and we talk about it to people all the time, in Hillsborough County, I pay the return postage, so it's quite easy. But if you don't want to trust the post office, or you don't want to leave it to chance, you can drop that vote by mail ballot during early voting at any early voting site. And that's anywhere in the state. That's in the law now. Also at any of the offices. I've got 4 offices in Hillsborough County. So currently, like I've got, I'll probably have upwards of 25 or 26 early vote sites coming up in August and November. And those are also drop-off spots.
That's great. We launched a major vote by mail campaign recently, and we're asking our Floridians to request their mail-in ballot now. And then depending on what is happening in August and November, they can always drop it off at the early vote drop box. If they want to wait till election day, they can vote in person. We always encourage the public to vote early. And of course, if they're more comfortable voting by mail because of the current pandemic, they can certainly do that. And we encourage them to do that. Mm-hmm. Another question from Carol. Would a vote by mail ballot ever be waylaid and made provisional? And she's also asking, what exactly does provisional mean with the ballot?
Yeah. First off, provisional, a lot of people think provisional is a bad word, and it's not. A provisional ballot is like an insurance policy. If you show up at a polling site to vote and you forgot your ID, you're going to have to vote a provisional ballot. You also have to sign that provisional ballot envelope. As soon as that gets back to our office, the first thing we do is compare that to the signature we have on file. If it matches, you don't have to do anything else. That ballot's accepted. The only reason that provisional ballots are not accepted is because people are in the wrong precinct and they refuse to go to another one, and so they vote a ballot in the precinct that they don't reside in. And the law is very clear on that you have to vote in the precincts you reside. Or you're not a registered voter. That's the other one we get. People will just pop in and want to vote and say they thought they were registered and they're not. The majority of the provisional ballots are in fact accepted in my county. I can tell you that. And a vote by mail ballot would not be in that provisional category at all. The only issue with a vote by mail ballot would be that if there was a signature mismatch or it wasn't signed at all on the oath on the envelope. If that occurs, we're immediately communicating with that voter. That's why this past legislative session, they changed and we've added optional on the vote by mail return envelope for your email address, your phone number, your cell phone number, so that we can communicate with you rapidly if we have to. And we communicate with the voters, send them that remedy, let them know what they need to do, signing the oath and returning a copy of a piece of identification to us. So that's the only time a vote by mail ballot kind of gets held up in queue and isn't automatically accepted.
Another question, this one is from Serena. What will happen in all of the districts with paid postage for vote by mail? I know this is something that the Supervisors Association has asked the governor about.
So a lot of supervisors that I've spoken to are talking about using the CARES money. There's $20 million that's supposed to be coming to the state that the state is looking at right now because there is a match that goes with that, a $4 million match that they're trying to figure out. But a lot of the supervisors are planning on using that CARES money to pay for the return postage. So, it's been a county by county decision for a long time. And, sometimes when the supervisors are presenting their budget, which my budget and all of us has to go to the Board of County Commissioners. And they might decide at the county commission level that that's not something that they want to pay for. And so they don't put that money in the supervisor's budget.
Here's a question from Mimi, and that is, the upcoming election will be held in a very new environment, and we certainly know that. What plans are being made to ensure everyone who wants to cast a ballot will be able to do so? Will those plans require additional personnel? And if so, how do you plan to acquire them?
Yeah, so first off, everybody in Florida can cast a vote by mail ballot if they want to. Florida's a no excuse vote by mail state. You don't have to have a reason or an excuse. That's why we don't call them absentee ballots. They're called vote by mail ballots. We're certainly looking, as all the other supervisors are too, on how we are going to have in-person voting be safe and healthy for everybody, the voters, our staff, everybody that wants to come and cast a vote in person. We're all getting used to standing on in lines with blue tape on the floor, right? About 6 feet apart. Don't be surprised if you see that when you go to a polling site or an early vote site. It's going to be an orderly process. We've got to look at how many people we're letting into a polling site. We're not going to have great.
I think we just lost Craig.
A phone call that, no, I'm back. I just had a phone call knocked me off there.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're going to be looking at how we can make these sites just as safe and healthy for everybody. And we're going to have a lot of poll workers in there already, so there's not going to be a lot of people coming in to vote at that time. But again, it's going to be an orderly process. An interesting point is March 17th, election day that we just had. In my county, and this was pretty much in every county around the state, we had about less than 50% of the people voted in person that voted in the 2016 presidential preference primary in person on election day. So that tells you right there that people are taking heed to this, and that they're reevaluating either early voting or vote by mail. Our vote by mail certainly ticked up for this last election. I think we ended up with over 50% of our voters voted by mail. And that's, the beauty in Hillsborough County and around the state is generally about 70% of our voters vote prior to election day, which is great, especially when you're a large county. I don't want everybody showing up, on election day. I don't want everybody showing up at early vote. We want to spread those voters out across those methods. But vote by mail is certainly a very attractive option right now. And I think we're talking about it. Everybody else is talking about it and getting ready for it.
Thank you. Here is another question. This is from Kathy. How can we address all of the quote unquote noise about the integrity of vote by mail? There are basically charges that it's more likely for vote by mail to be subject to fraud.
Yeah, you didn't give anything in my bio when you introduced me, and that's okay. But for your listeners and viewers to know that prior to this job, I spent 35 years with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, retiring as a major. So security is important to me, and I'm constantly looking for fraud. I'm not seeing it. About the biggest fraud we've had with a vote by mail is one of our more mature voters got a vote by mail ballot 40 days before the election. They voted it, and then as it got closer to the election, all the ads started, and they were like, oh my gosh, I need to go vote. And they'd show up to vote only to find out they'd already cast their vote by mail ballot. There was no intention. They forgot they had done it. I just really, only a registered voter can receive a vote by mail ballot. That's number one. You have to have a request on file. We don't just send vote by mail ballots out to people, and a non-registered voter can't get one. You sign the oath on that envelope, and that signature is then compared to the signatures that we have on file at our office. And as I said earlier, if a signature doesn't match, we begin that process of communicating with the voter so that we can make sure they remedy that. And we actually, the legislature, again, working with our association, they extended the time. It used to be you had to have that cured by the Monday at 5 before the election, which just didn't make sense. Now you can do it up to 48 hours after the election. So that also falls in line with the same amount of time you have to remedy a provisional ballot. So that's a good process. We're not seeing any type of fraud take place in vote by mail.
Okay, we have a member, Val, who has a suggestion. She said she thinks it would be a good idea for Florida to issue ballots with a code such as the type of code the census is using. She believes it would take an additional step and that the code would be voter specific. Have you all ever considered anything like that?
Well, I'm not familiar with the census code on there, but I can tell you that the first thing that comes to my mind is that in Florida, it's a secret ballot. And there's no identification on the ballot that goes back to the voter. So I don't know exactly what she's trying to demonstrate with that, or the suggestion. There's nothing on a ballot in Florida. It only goes to a precinct is all it does. It doesn't go to a voter. And as a matter of fact, just to take it one step further, when we report results on our website, if there's less than 10 votes in a precinct, we don't show them, because people might be able to figure out who voted in for who. And that's statewide that happens, by the way. It's by the vendor. So, there's a lot of care that takes place. It's in our Constitution and in state law that it's a secret ballot, and there's no way to track it back to a voter.
Thank you. We have a question from Julie. She said that she's been voting for years now by mail, and that she's learned that in other states, you have to provide a reason for voting by mail. And she's wondering if she's missed such a requirement in Florida and may have been in violation of the law. I don't believe that would be the case.
No, Florida is a no excuse vote by mail ballot. You don't need a reason. You don't have to give a reason. All you have to do is go online and request that vote by mail ballot, and your supervisor of election is going to send it to you.
Another question, during your time with us, can you address your understanding of new legislation that allows voters to be challenged by anyone regardless of what county they are from? I don't believe that legislation passed. Is that correct, Craig?
I don't believe it did either. I'd have to research that. But, currently anybody can challenge a voter. And I think that's really a holdover from days long ago. When they would challenge a voter that, they don't live in this precinct and that type of stuff. But, as population's grown and stuff, we see very few challenges that are, put forth. And, the other part of that is that law also says that you can be charged with a crime if you're doing frivolous challenges. So if somebody's just coming in there and trying to, be a pain and slow a process down with frivolous challenges, they could be criminally charged.
That's good to know. And I don't think that legislation passed this session. A question from Gary. What happens if someone's signature that is on file with your office has been changed over time? Is the voter contacted?
We constantly tell people to update their signature so that we've got a current signature. But we have more than just one signature on file. We can also use the signatures if the person votes at an early vote site or on election day and they've used an electronic poll book of some type. We can use those signatures. So it's not just, a signature that we got from you 20 years ago, that's going to be like that. So, but here's what I like to tell people. Update your signature, especially if you're voting by mail. Go online, update your signature. It pulls your signature in off your driver's license. Then if you need to remember how to sign your name, look at your driver's license and sign it like you signed your driver's license.
Okay, good suggestion. A question from Dornath. What if I voted by mail previously and noted that I would like the vote by mail ballot sent? May I then switch to voting online? I believe I can answer that. There is no voting online.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that is a good point though.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of counties are starting to do this. Now, when you make a vote by mail request, it's only good through 2 general election cycles. What I did, I started probably 8 or 9 years ago, is I have a checkbox right above where you sign the oath on the ballot. And it says, I want to continue to receive vote by mail ballots. And all the person has to do is check that. And we continue to keep their vote by mail request going. So it doesn't expire.
Okay. Beatrice is asking, signature rejection of vote by mail disproportionately affected voters of color and young voters in Florida. What is being done to correct this problem?
Yeah. I'm assuming that she might be referring to a study that was done by Daniel Smith at the University of Florida. And I can tell you that that data is not real accurate. What it's blended into that is ballots that were received late at the supervisor's offices. You know, by law, you have to have that ballot into the supervisor's office by 7 p.m. on election day. So they're marking them as rejected, and it's basically a coding area with the voter registration system. That ballot's never been presented to a canvassing board. It's not valid. It's not a valid vote because it was received late. It'd be no different than if somebody came in to my office on Wednesday and said, "Hey, I'm here to vote." I'm going to tell them, "Oh, I'm sorry, you can't. You know, there's nothing to vote on today." But those were being counted as rejected by the researcher, and they were not rejected. They were never presented to the canvassing board in any fashion. Now, having said that, that's one of the things that we certainly are trying to get the word out on, because it's exasperating to have the post office deliver several hundred ballots to us the day, 2 days, 3 days after an election. So we're really encouraging people, you know, get your ballot in and get it in. Don't wait till the last minute. You're really taking your chances. You know, right now the post office openly tells you that a first-class mail is 3 to 5 days to get to a destination. So if you're mailing a ballot 2 days before the election, even 3 days, it's probably not going to get to us on time.
Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. Mail it in as early as you can. Here's a question from Ronnie. What are the legal protections for us if it is decided that our signature is not a match?
So it's in statute. There is a remedy. We begin communicating with you. There's a form or oath that you fill out, and then you must include a copy of one of the forms of identification, acceptable forms of identification, and mail it back to our office. You can email it to our office. There's several ways you can do it. So that's the remedy for it. And that's why we're asking for additional information on the back of the vote by mail envelope so that we can rapidly contact you.
Okay. From Sharon, if no signature is required for online voter registration, when the voter uses a vote by mail ballot, how can the signature be verified?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Sure. If you register to vote online, and you know the signature requirement is different there when you register online, then the voter uses the vote by mail ballot, how can the signature be verified?
Right, and that's what it does, is it pulls your driver's license signature or your Florida ID signature into that voter file. So that's what we're looking at, is how you signed your driver's license. That's what we're going to be comparing against.
Okay. From Terry, when is someone purged from voter lists besides death?
Yeah, so first off, purge is really a rough word. There's several stages that you can go through. You can register to vote, never vote, and never get off the list, because we're going to start communicating with you with list maintenance, and as long as you respond to that, you're going to remain an active voter. Now, if we start getting change of addresses, you know, you've moved out of state, things like that, there's a whole process in state law that's going to continue with that. And we're going to start communicating with you. You'll get a postcard will be sent to you. If there's no response to it, there's a second one that's now forwardable that's sent. And then there's finally a third one that's sent. If those are not responded to, then that person is going to be placed in an inactive status through 2 election cycles. And if we still haven't had any contact with that person, then they are going to be made ineligible to vote and would have to re-register. Now, if you're in that inactive period and you do anything, sign a petition, request a vote by mail ballot, anything at all, boom, you go right back to the active list again. So it's, you know, and there's a whole process of list maintenance we go through where we'll mail to people that haven't voted in 2 election cycles. We also are looking at the national change of address. You know, that's something that we're constantly involved with. And we're looking at that. Ironically, in my county alone, over 30,000 people a year change addresses for either, you know, moving in county, moving out of county, whatever they may do. And I guarantee you the first thing they don't think of is, oh, I need to call Craig Latimer and tell him I moved. One of the beauties of that too, though, is that Florida has now joined the ERIC project, which is a nationwide consortium that we send our driver's license information, our voter information. They mix it, match it, come back and give us lists of people that have moved that we aren't aware of. They've either moved in state or out of state. They also are going to give us people that are deceased. You know, if somebody dies in Florida, we rapidly get that information. But if they go to their vacation home up in North Carolina, it's a little bit longer before it gets to us in some fashions. The ERIC project, the other absolute wonderful thing about that is that they also furnish the state with list of eligible but unregistered individuals. So they're looking at people that don't have a registration on file, that may have a driver's license, or for other information that they're getting. In Florida, this first poll is probably going to be about 4 million people. And the state is required to mail to all of these people to encourage them, give them the opportunity, the information about how to register to vote. That is actually slated right now, I'm being told, that's going to occur between the week of September 7th and 14th, that those mailers will be going out.
Okay. This is somewhat related to that, Craig. We have a question from Michelle. How do we maximize vote by mail? What about sending all registered voters a postcard notifying them how to register by mail?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. Who do we mail it to? We don't know who they are, the ones that aren't registered. You know, we don't have a file of people that aren't registered. And to mail to 1.4 million people in a scatter shot, we do a tremendous amount in my county. I can tell you that we do a lot of advertising. We're out at a lot of events. We partner with numerous people. You know, one of the things that I do every election is we have an art contest, and the top 3 pieces of artwork from our students in the county are then put on a flyer, and the information about how to register, the election dates, closing dates, and everything's on the other side of this flyer. And we partner with Casper's McDonald, which is the largest McDonald's franchisee in the state. And they put these all in bag stuffers and tray liners in all of their 53 restaurants in Hillsborough County. That is a tremendous reach that we get off of that. We do billboards. I mean, we've got signs on buses. There's just a tremendous amount. And there's registration forms that are available at every library. They're also at a lot of county facilities. Any fishing license, a place that sells fishing licenses, they've got them on file. So there's a lot of information that's out there. And there's just, obviously there's some people that really don't want to register to vote. We find people that registered to vote and they don't vote. Those I'm concerned with too. You know,
Yes.
we have about a 72-73% turnout in a presidential year election. I think it's going to be higher this year. But, where are those other people?
I think Michelle may have been meaning to say, could postcards go out to registered voters, notifying them about how to vote by mail?
Yeah, we do that. We do that every election. And a lot of the supervisor, most of them do, they mail to, some of them mail to households, some of them mail to individual voters, giving them that information. We'll have ours will be going out pretty soon here, probably in the next week or two in our county. And I know some counties have already mailed.
Okay. From Diane, if someone does not include the email address on their vote by mail ballot, will it be counted?
Absolutely. You don't have to fill out any of the optional information. That information is just there for us to be able to rapidly communicate with you in case there's some issue with your signature or you forgot to sign it.
Okay. Now, I know we've already had one question about fraud. This one's a little bit different, but it is also about possible fraud. Can you address, this is from Jean, can you address the fraud allegation that people are sitting around tables filling out ballots that don't belong to them? What processes ensure that this does not happen?
Yeah, so, number one, we mail directly to a voter. So we're putting the ballot in their hands. And then again, that signature on that envelope must match the signature that we have on file. So, we don't have dead people voting. We don't have people voting for somebody else. Interestingly enough, we get some signature mismatches sometimes, and we start looking at them and realize that it's a household. It might be a husband and wife, and they got their ballots and didn't realize that that envelope is specific to them, not the ballot, but the envelope. And so when it automatically pulls up the signature, we're looking at it. It's supposed to be John, and it's signed by Mary. Well, we look in the file and see that they both ordered a vote by mail ballot, and the signatures match, and those go on. They never even knew anything about it. That's not a mismatched signature. The law is very specific that it just must match the signature on file. So I can't really address what she's talking about. I've not heard about that, and I certainly haven't seen anything like that.
That's good to know. From Cynthia, I'm concerned about security on the exterior of the ballot envelopes. Would it be possible to provide 8.5 by 11 postal envelopes pre-addressed to the local SOE office for voters to insert their entire ballots to go into the SOE's office?
Yeah, we've had that question before, and there's a handful of people that just don't want their signature on, exposed on the back of the envelope. And we encourage them to go ahead and get an envelope and put it in it and mail it to us that way if they want, or drop it off. That's going to be the easiest way to do it. I think putting another layer of some kind of envelope that has to be open. I told you earlier that my office sent out 263,000 ballots, and we get probably about 80 to 90% of those back. Everything we do is pretty much a machine process. The return envelopes, they're fed into a machine. That's where it integrates with our voter registration system. You can actually go online and see this. Go to my website. We've got videos of it. And that same machine actually slits the top of that envelope when we're ready to open it. So doing anything, putting a flap on the back or putting an additional envelope is going to be extremely manpower intensive to the supervisor's office.
This is from Cheryl, how do we confirm that our vote by mail ballot has been received and counted? And we do encourage on our website Floridians who register to vote and vote by mail to track their ballot with the Supervisor of Election.
Yeah, you can go on your individual Supervisor of Elections office and track that ballot back. You can see it all along the line there. There's some other systems that some of the counties use now that you can actually see it coming to you. And if you want to give them phone numbers, they can text you and tell you heads up, your ballot's on the way. We always publicize very, very much when we're sending our first shipments of ballot out. It's a big shipment for starters. And we get, the press media is very helpful in that vicinity, that they'll make sure that they do stories about it so that people are seeing it. Or, online, we're doing social media. So, people should be knowing when their ballot's coming to them.
Now, this is kind of a tough question. As you know, Craig, we're in the midst of the lawsuit on the implementing legislation on Amendment 4. How are you preparing to address this issue with ex-felons voting, registering to vote? What are the plans in place from the supervisors?
So let me give you a caveat. First off, I think it was about 2 hours ago, I was named as a defendant in this case, which was not surprising since I'd already been deposed. So I'll limit my conversation there. But I can just tell you that right now, and I've been following the trial, is that the state is trying to add a couple more lines to the voter registration form, to kind of close the loop, because there was a couple issues, like if you were convicted of a felony in another state, and that state, your rights are restored as soon as you get off probation, nothing about fines and fees, then your rights have been restored by that state and not taken away here. So there was no checkbox for that. And then the other one, of course, is about the fines and fees, that, whether somebody can afford to pay the fines and fees. We have had absolutely no direction from the state on this issue. Several of the supervisors are getting innovative with people like the ones from out of state, and we'll download the old form for them and give them that one. It just says that their rights have been restored. So I think that a lot of the supervisors are trying to accommodate. Now, When somebody comes in, we don't ask them if they're a felon. And if they check the box, they check the box. We look at the four corners of the paper. It's up to them to be sure they're self-reporting appropriately. The same way you check the box that you're a U.S. citizen, and the same way you check the box that says that you haven't been declared mentally incompetent in the area of voting.
And but it's not up to the supervisors to follow up and make sure that this person has fulfilled their obligations as far as these fines and fees, which is, of course, what is being determined in court right now.
Today, it is not the supervisor's responsibility. Again, some of the things I've read, depositions that are going on in this case, is that it appears to me that the state may have intentions to shove that down to the supervisors. And I don't know how we're going to be equipped or prepared to handle that, quite frankly, and to be able to, there's no central database that has all the information about fines and fees. I heard the other day, and I didn't know this, that if you've got a lot of the fees are moved over to civil liens, which, the only way that would ever get satisfied is if the person hit the lottery or something, and then they could, put the lien on them. But those expire after 20 years. So, how am I supposed to determine that? There's just a lot of questions around that.
There truly are. And I think that there's going to be a continuation of many questions, at least until this is finally resolved through the court system. We have a question from Robin. And first of all, I know the first part of this question. Is it possible for people's signature to change over the years? I know myself that my signature is a mess now. It looks like the signature on a doctor's prescription. So yes, the signatures change over the years. So how do you find out what your signature looks like on file at the supervisor's office?
Yeah, I think I answered that before, actually.
I think you did. I apologize.
You can go online to the online voter registration to update your registration, update your signature. It pulls your current signature from the driver's license file into your voter file. So all you have to do is look at your driver's license, and that's how you should sign your name. If you want to do a paper update too, that's great. You can download the form online, mail it in, or go to any of your supervisor's offices and update your registration there and get a new signature on file. And I got to tell you, for people that are first time vote by mail, and they may be a little bit more mature in age, that they should update their signature. I would encourage them to do it so that there's no slowdown, there's no snafu. We don't have to hold up the ballot because something didn't match.
Question from Deborah. When are the vote by mail ballots counted in the election?
A great question, and one we get a lot because there's that myth out there about we only count them if there's a big enough difference in a race, and that is not true. By law, we begin processing vote by mail ballots 15 days before the election. So there's an opening process we go to, and then they're actually start running through the high-speed scanners. Those numbers are held in queue until 7 o'clock on election night, and right after 7 o'clock, vote by mail and early vote totals are the ones that are released first. Then the precincts start coming in.
Okay. From Linda. Can I collect a neighbor's vote by mail ballot and drop them off for them?
You can, not too many though. You're allowed to have yours and another one or two, I believe. I'd have to exactly check the law on it, but neighbors shouldn't be picking up everybody's vote by mail ballot in the entire neighborhood.
What about at these senior centers or retirement homes where all of the residents are voting by mail? Who takes those vote by mail ballots into the supervisor's office?
So right now there's actually a process. It's called Supervised Voting, where the supervisor's office is the one that actually goes to these nursing homes and administers it. That changed on March 17th when before that they put the order out and didn't want anybody in the nursing homes. So we're working with the administrators of the nursing homes right now and also looking to the division for some direction on how we can accommodate that. They are voting a vote by mail ballot. The only difference was we had 2 people that were observing before helping if they needed to from different parties. That's going to change a little bit now, but we're, like I said, we're working with the administrators, and I know some of the other supervisors, not some, but all of them are looking at this too.
Okay. Question from Nikki. Will the SOEs be reaching out to populations that are less likely to register and or vote? And are there any suggestions for us regarding this issue?
Yeah, we do a tremendous amount of outreach. One of the things we do, of course, in Florida, 16 and 17-year-olds can pre-register. And we've worked with the school district for years and years, where we're in the schools at least twice a year, pre-registering these 16 and 17-year-olds. That's obviously one way that we're getting to different minority populations. We also, up until everything stopped here, in Hillsborough County, we have one of the immigration centers where they do all the new citizens swearing in. And we were at every one of those swearing in ceremonies, giving these new citizens the opportunity to exercise the very first right that they could, and that's to register to vote. They've suspended these swearing ins right now, so we'll see where they're going to pick up, but we'll continue to target areas like that. We also spend a lot of time, Hillsborough County has a large Hispanic population too. So we do a lot of our outreach in, the different areas of the county where we know that there's, pockets of Hispanics. So there's a lot of outreach that's done. In my county, where you got a larger county, there's a tremendous amount of groups that are already out there. Mi Familia is out there, doing registrations, trying to direct people. So there's a lot of work that's already done. I certainly don't have all the answers and don't know where to find all the people, but we're trying to get the word out.
Thank you. Question from Judith. Do all the counties in the state have sufficient ballot counting capability if you have a huge increase in the number of vote by mail ballots?
Yeah. And it's relative to the size of the county. That's what you've got to remember. Lafayette County up in the Panhandle, I think they've got a little over 4,000 voters in the entire county. They certainly could probably handle 4,000 people voting by mail. In Miami, you've got like 1.2 or 1.4 million people that vote by mail. And that would be a little bit, I'm sure, a larger increase. Right now, I think they do about 400,000 vote by mail ballots. As I mentioned, in my county, 263,000. I expect that to go up. The larger counties are fully automated. We've got these, it's called Blue Crest Reliavote machines that has its two parts. One side is an inserter, the other side is a sorter. We're capable in one shift of putting together about 40,000 vote by mail ballot packages a day. So we'll probably be working two shifts. The same way on the sorter side. We'll be capable. That thing, I really would encourage everybody, take a minute, go to votehillsborough.org and look at some of the videos we've got there that shows these, the Reliavote machine and just how fast this thing is and what a great job it does. So, I've been talking again to a lot of my colleagues around the state. We know that there's going to be an increase. We're talking about shifts. We're talking about shifts while social distancing, by the way. So, we're looking at obviously having to increase our work time on that, but I think that it will be taken care of. I don't see a delay of this happening on election night. As I've said already, that we begin processing those ballots. I can tell you that I think it was 2018, we actually got in 10,000 ballots on election day that were dropped at our office or we picked up at the post office before 7. We stayed there. We did all those. We processed them, signature verification, tabulated them. We were there till 4 in the morning, but we got them all done. So that, gives you a little bit of an idea about, being able to use the technology to work faster. And
of course, that technology takes money, and you're still waiting to hear about additional funding.
Yes, and I know there is some counties that would like to purchase some of this equipment, either on the sorter side to handle this increase. And those things aren't cheap, I can assure you that. I know that we upgraded to the latest one before the 2018 election and traded in my previous model, and it was still over $1 million for that equipment.
Wow. Here's a question that's related to the social distancing from Serena. During the last election, voters had to sign with their fingers. The stylus pens were not supplied. Meanwhile, the iPad devices were almost impossible to sterilize. A stylus can be much more easily sterilized. Can these types of issues be addressed?
Yeah, and I think they are. I think that a lot of supervisors are looking at different things. I heard one with some real innovation talking about using Q-tips with something wrapped on it that the thing would recognize. You know, we're looking at right now. I can tell you that my office is looking at. We're going to give you a stylus and a pen, and you can take it with you.
Okay.
We don't want it back. We're also looking at what we can do around the secrecy sleeves. You know, those secrecy sleeves are reused. So we're looking at what we can do not to reuse secrecy sleeves, to be able to have a more temporary one that is going to go bye-bye. And the secrecy sleeves be what you put your ballot in if you're voting at early vote or election day. There's also a secrecy sleeve when you vote by mail that you put it in also, though.
Okay, Mary Beth has a question. In a recent Supreme Court case, it was decided that postmark, not delivery, was the test for timely voting. Have you reviewed that case, and will Florida honor ballots by postmark date or by a delivery date? Yeah,
the state law specifically states that it must be in the supervisor's office by 7 p.m., not by postmark. So, you know, that's what had now. The federal law is that we have to wait 10 days after a general election that we can still accept an overseas military or civilian ballot. As long as it's postmarked by election day, we can accept that. But those are the only ones that we can accept. A county vote by mail ballot must be in the supervisor's office by 7 o'clock.
From Karen, what does the post office do with ballots that come without stamps? Do they hold them or do they send them on?
They send them on.
They send them on?
They send them on, yeah.
The Department of, this is from Mimi, the Department of Homeland Security has designated election infrastructure as critical. What has been done as a result of that?
I don't know how much time we've got left because I could probably go on for about an hour. One of the things that did was really opened up our federal partners to us, where we've got tremendous communication going on. I can also tell you that as a result of that, in every county in this state now has what's called the Albert Monitor on their servers. This is a partner of Homeland Security that actually monitors these things, so they can see any traffic. They can see every bit of traffic going in and out of my office, all the offices. So if my servers wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start trying to ping another country, they're going to immediately see that, and they're going to immediately be contacting us for shutting down. Having said that, I think one of the important distinctions we need to make, and this is statewide in Florida. In Florida, the tabulation servers are a standalone air-gap system, not connected to the internet, not connected to my intranet. So it's a totally standalone system, as opposed to our registration systems. Because we have a statewide registration system, all of the supervisors feed into that. So we all do have our own side of the registration system. There's a tremendous amount of security that goes into that. And again, with our partners, not only at the federal level, but at the state level, there's a constant looking, if you will, at your system to make sure that you've got patches done, vulnerabilities. We constantly get lists of bad IP addresses that we can blacklist in our systems. So just a tremendous amount. I can tell you that I told you before, I spent 35 years in law enforcement, and in the last 4 years, I've spent more time with the FBI than I did in 35 years of law enforcement.
Wow. I bet you could talk a lot about what's been going on. Let me ask you another question from Catherine. With the offices currently closed, who is processing paper requests for vote by mail?
Yeah. So I can tell you in my office, I've got several people that are in my office several days a week, and that's all they do is process that stuff. And I say process, My office is pretty much paperless, so everything that comes in we scan, and we have for years. That way we don't have paper on desks falling on the floor and things like that. So I've got people that are coming in, they're processing the mail, they're scanning everything that needs to be done. Then I've got a cadre of people that are working remotely that are able to electronically get that information, input it into the Florida voter registration system, or process the vote by mail request, putting it into our system. So we're continuing to work with paper, that's for sure.
We've had a number of questions regarding what is the best way to request a vote by mail ballot.
Online is the best way to do it. Go to your Supervisor of Elections website for whatever county you live in, and you can request it right there. That's the easiest way to do it, or call your supervisor's office.
Okay. Dee asked a question: what sort of training do those who verify signatures receive?
By law, they have to go through training by a certified handwriting expert. And that's in addition to myself and the judges that are on our canvassing board. We also have that recorded so that we could give it to all of our people that are in fact verifying signatures. There's also a step process. My employees can only accept a signature. They can't reject a signature. A signature can only be rejected by the canvassing board. So we'll begin that process where we communicate with a person if a signature doesn't match. And if they don't follow up and send that information in, then that signature that they've given us is what's going to go to the canvassing board, and the canvassing board will make the final determination on whether that signature matches what's on file.
Okay, we've got a question from Beth, and essentially she's asking, what are the standards for determining how many polling places are put into a district?
So I'm not certain what they mean by the district.
Or the county, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, the county.
So I mentioned earlier that previously about 70% of our voters vote prior to election day. So, you know, even though the precinct may have 1,000 voters in it, 700 of them have already voted. So it's very easy to take that precinct and co-locate it with another precinct, because we can certainly run that many people through in a 12-hour time period. And that's what a lot of the supervisors do. So, you know, there's not a real magic number. We certainly look at the precincts and try and keep them where they're going to be manageable. Most of our precincts are under the 2,000 category. I do have some that are larger than that. So it just depends on the area. You know, you got to be able to, of course, handle the voters. I mean, we look at this data all the time. That's probably the biggest thing. That's the biggest determiner. We don't just take a stab at it, you know, and put it up on a dartboard and throw a dart at it and say, oh, that looks like a good place to put a site. We're constantly looking at things. You know, is there physical barriers to get to a polling site from one area to another? Is there a river there that they have to go all the way down and go over a bridge? What are the transportation issues that you have to deal with? What about your high density neighborhoods where public transportation may be the main mode of transportation? So there's a tremendous amount that goes into this that the supervisors are looking at. And again, the size of the precinct.
This is a question from Sean. How do you register if you don't have a driver's license or state ID?
You have to furnish the last four of your social security number. It takes a little bit longer. There's a verification process that the state goes through with a match, but they will match that last four of your social with your other information.
Earlier, you were talking about the late delivery by the post office. So a question from Mary is, what will happen if ballots, even if postmarked 7 days or more before the election, are received after 7 p.m. on election day due to staff shortages or funding issues? Will they be counted?
That ballot has to be in the supervisor's office by 7 p.m. period.
And have there been any requests? I know you sent a letter to the governor. Was one of your requests to the governor to expand the deadline there?
The association did not move that forward. There was discussion about that. It did not move forward. There's a lot of states that do that, you know, that it's a postmark +2 or postmark +4, different amounts of time. Florida currently does not do that. I know that there's several groups, including, I believe the League has also sent a letter of support for our letter and included things like allowing ballots that are received after the postmark. I mean, quite frankly, as I mentioned earlier, we're receiving and accepting overseas military and civilian ballots, and it's because of the slow mail system, 10 days after the election, as long as it's postmarked by election day. So, you know, the issue is people that are not getting their ballots in time. They're waiting till the last minute. And I guarantee you that even if we had a postmark +2, we'd still be getting them in late.
We have time for one more question, and that is from Carol. How does Florida rate in the number of voters who actually vote as compared with other states?
Good. Florida as a state ranks fairly good comparing to the other states around the country. You know, our counties are doing a great job too. I mentioned earlier that we average a 72-73% turnout in a presidential. I'm trying to remember now. I think the last one was like 60% around the country was the average or something like that. So Florida's ranking well above that. Well,
that's great news. I want to thank you so much, Craig, for joining us. When do you take your office position? When is it official at the Supervisors Association?
Yeah, I'll actually be sworn in Monday. It takes officially on the 11th, May 11th, I'll take over.
Well, congratulations. We look forward to working with you further. And thanks again for providing us with such terrific information today. Everyone is thanking you. Our guest, Craig Latimer, Hillsborough County Supervisor of Election and incoming president of the Supervisors Association. Thanks again, Craig.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be able to communicate and get information out there always. Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone, we are now going to hear from our first Vice President, Cecile Schoon, who is our Amendment 4 point person. She testified this week and did a masterful job in the court case. And so Cecile is here with us to give us a brief update on what is happening with the trial. Cecile, go ahead.
Hi, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, our lawyers are doing a fabulous job. The experts were fascinating and really detailed the difficulties of obtaining any kind of records in a consistent way. They explained in terms of what any fines and fees and financial obligations that might have been incurred with the sentence. And they even brought out that the Department of Corrections and the Florida FDLE, they were giving different answers, if you could even get an answer. So that really showed that the impossibility, the legal impossibility of determining what is a fine and fee. And then that we had other experts testify that the returning citizens had great difficulty obtaining jobs to be able to even live and take care of their living obligations, let alone paying a fee. And they really did a good job. I testified that and indicated the burden that SB 7066 has placed on us in terms of the additional work, trying to look up people's records, trying to train lawyers to help people, trying to connect returning citizens. It's just been a headache, a huge burden, and a huge negative impact on the league. And so today, the defense started their case, and I was just listening to Desmond Nee. They had him testify by videotape. And basically, he supported his version or his vision of what Amendment 4 was. But from what I heard from his testimony, we still have, it's not going to nail us down, because what the judge is talking about is that, first of all, people cannot find out what the fines and fees are, and they cannot pay, and you cannot stop a fundamental right based on economic status. So we're very hopeful that we'll get a good result.
Cecile, thank you for that information. And the trial is expected to last about, what, another week?
It looks like the defense was moving kind of fast. I think it may be over by Tuesday or Wednesday.
Oh, okay. Well, we will keep watching, and we thank you very much for all of your great work. Thank you, Cecile. And before we conclude today, I have an announcement I'd like to make regarding our Florida voter, which is going out this weekend, probably later today or first thing in the morning. And that is that our Poverty Action Chair, Beth Hovind, out of Pinellas County, has written an excellent essay about the economic needs that are going to be really critical as a result of the pandemic. And I urge all of you to read her essay, which we are providing in the voter. And of course, she runs a statewide action team on this issue. And I predict that we are going to see the economic necessities of Floridians and the poverty issues increase and rise up to the top of our legislative priorities next year. So I think it's important, if you could all read Beth's essay, please do. And she provides information on when her statewide committee meets. They have either online meetings or phone meetings. But please do read Beth's excellent essay. It's very informative and addresses the number of the very critical issues that are going to have to be dealt with. So in the meantime, I want to thank you all for joining us again for our weekly Lunch and Learn. We're going to continue to do these at 1 o'clock Eastern every Friday. And if you have suggestions of topics that you would like addressed during these Lunch and Learns, please feel free to email our office and we will definitely consider them. And we are so thrilled to have so many of you joining. We had well over 250 people on this call today. So thank you. Stay safe and have a good weekend. Thanks, everybody.